Can you imagine a world where the stars and stripes were red and yellow, where the bald eagle was replaced by the hammer and sickle, where the American dream was the collective dream? If America were a communist country, Wall Street would cease to exist, many things would disappear and others would be preserved. But which ones exactly? In this video, we will explore an alternate reality where America is a communist country. What would its history, economy, politics, and culture be like? Join us on this fascinating journey. First, we will briefly define communism. It is an extreme form of socialism based on collective ownership of the means of production and the absence of social classes. In a communist system, the government controls all aspects of economic and social life. The goal of communism is to create a classless society in which all citizens have equal rights and opportunities. Which countries are currently considered socialist or communist? China, Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, and Venezuela are a few examples. An alternative world where the United States was communist would be very different from the one we know today. In political terms, the government would be controlled by a single party. There would be greater participation of workers in government, but freedom of speech and press would be limited. For example, we know that the United States boasts of its freedom of speech where every citizen says what he or she wants and is free to think what he or she wants. On the other hand, if it were a communist country, the only press allowed in the country would be the one that speaks well of its political leaders. Something important is that the voting system would change. The Democratic and Republican parties would disappear and there would be only one party, which would be called the Communist Party of the United States. The 11.5% poverty rate we have or our 3% unemployment rate would disappear because in communism there are no social classes. What would happen to the US dollar? As in any such country, the currency will drop in price in the first few years. Of course, if you decide to control the source of income and make expenditures on maintenance, it is logical that your country will begin to have a depreciation of the dollar. This means that the world's strongest currency, which functions as a mainstay, will cease to be a mainstay and will most likely be replaced by the yen. This would imply that the United States would lose its superpower position for a few years. But not everything is absolutely bad. It would have good relations with countries like Russia, China, Cuba, Nicaragua, North Korea, Venezuela, Belarus, and Eritrea. But there would be problems with the rest of the capitalist countries. Probably, within the country itself, there would be many marches, demonstrations, a lot of military intervention, and a lot of social conflicts, being a society that is not used to this new communist regime. Economic terms, the US government would control all aspects of production and distribution of goods and services. This could lead to greater economic equality, but it could also reduce efficiency and innovation. What would happen to the companies? It is at this point that Wall Street would close its doors, as the companies would become state-owned, or rather, part of public and community service. In this new scenario, no one would be able to own shares or benefit economically from these companies, which would lead to the complete disappearance of control and the sale of shares. The first act of the new communist US government would be to expropriate or nationalize companies like Apple and Google. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Trump, etc. would witness the government putting people in charge of their companies who are akin to the communist regime. Trump as well as many businessmen would flee to capitalist countries. But no matter, the new communist USA does not need them, as there would be job openings for everyone. Perhaps a technology congress would be created. This is where something that the government would have to implement comes in. First, give jobs to all the people. Second, have skilled labor. This concept was implemented in Venezuela and is called the mission system. The missions have the objective of teaching people without knowledge of how to work. Therefore, paying everyone the same while facing a huge amount of expenses for public services, which are not few, would inevitably lead to an increase in the prices of products for their recovery. Not to mention that the quality of food products would also be affected, because of the need to overproduce for everyone, which means much higher expenses, higher prices, and lower quality. Franchises like McDonald's will continue to exist, but the quality of their hamburgers would drop too much. How would it change the quality of life for Americans? Social terms, this hypothetical America would be a more egalitarian society. Education, healthcare, and housing would be universal rights. There would be greater social justice, but individual freedom would be limited. Everyone would have access to a home, but those homes would be built with substandard materials. If you owned your home, you should forget about that idea, since we would all live equally, without private property, turning everything into public or community property. High-cost private educational institutes, such as Phillips Academy, St. Mark's School of Texas, the College Preparatory School, and Trinity School, would be affordable to all. Even prestigious universities like Harvard would no longer be financially inaccessible to many. However, this change would not be free, as getting into a public institution would require a good level of knowledge. Let's talk about subsidies. These would cover even public services, which would be free. Consequently, it would no longer be necessary to pay taxes or any other type of fee, including housing, since the government would be in charge of subsidizing all these aspects. Since all citizens would have access to the minimum services and the salary is the same for all, there would be no incentive to improve their social status. Other important changes. In the new United States, Americans will have to forget that they will have inheritance, since an important law would be the abolition of the right to inheritance. This is how they fight capitalism. Also, if you still keep your house and decide to emigrate from the country, they will likely confiscate it and give it to someone else. But the most shocking thing is the centralization of the banking system. Probably the elimination, or better said, absorption of all banks will mean that now you will only have one bank account and all the people in the country will share this system. In terms of technology, there will likely be stagnation, which could result in the lack of new iPhone and Mac equipment releases. This is because the government, which controls everything, has a new goal: survival and agriculture. Therefore, it will possibly focus on investing in these sectors and employing in the field. Technological equipment may still exist, but not to the same extent as before. With this, we have explored the application of the communist model and its consequences within the country. However, capitalism does not die out so easily, and it is unlikely that the US will give up exports. With all this, you know what would happen if the United States became communist today. What other consequences can you think of that could happen? What do you think the country would be like in this hypothetical case? What do you think would happen with immigration? Would the United States be an attractive country to emigrate to? See you in future videos.